So, my countdown to Jigsaw has come to an end in my review for Saw the Final Chapter, aka Saw 3D. So, if you have not seen this movie, there's gonna be spoilers in this review, so that is your warning. Now, I have I've actually rewatched this movie not long ago, and back to when this movie was released. I didn't mind it too much. I liked how it answered some questions. It's definitely a really burning question of what happened to Dr. Gordon, and that's what kept me pretty satisfied. When I first watched it. Now that I watched it again, wow, this movie has to be probably the worst movie in the franchise. I mean, I forgot how really cringy the acting is. Like, oh, it is so bad. And it has the dumbest opening scene ever. I mean, like the dumbest how they have opening scenes where someone's in a trap and then you're waiting for them to fail and or whatever. Well, this is the worst. Opening, well, death trap opening ever, and has the worst. It has the worst protagonist ever, and my gosh, I mean, and then there's this guy. I mean, it turns out to be this guy who basically claims that he was a victim of Jigsaw. Is all like, oh, he hooked me. He had me hooked up into my. He had hooks jammed into my nipples. Like and then he has people buying his book about it and all that stuff and whatever and it turns out, guess what happens? He ends up actually being a victim of Jigsaw, and then is actually the main test subject. The main character. Like I said, he's getting tested through this movie, and worst, like probably one of the most dull, most boring characters ever in the franchise. Oh my gosh! But while I'm ripping this movie to shreds, I mean, again, the best part of the movie is when we find out what happened to Dr. Gordon. And also you get Hoffman and chasing Jill. It's like they're playing that cat and mouse thing, since she failed to kill him, like how she was well supposed to at the end of Saw 6, and he got out of that trap, and so yeah, like he's really out for blood, and she goes to some old friends of his, and then yeah, so it's basically him just basically going after Jill while that is happening, and like the death scenes are really phony, and they don't really get to you like how they do like in the previous movies, especially the first one, and I mean, a lot of horror franchises, like have gotten to that point where it was like that one movie that pulled them into a funk they can't seem to get out of, and yeah, it's terrible. and and I was not rooting for Mr. Look at me, I was Jigsaw's victim, and I was not ready for him to, make it out of there. I mean, was I a little bit on the edge of my seat? Yeah, I mean, I was at times. But that's it. That is it. And the idea to have it in 3D, I was just like, is that really necessary? Is it really necessary? Just no, I don't know. Um, and 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 then Hoffman finally did catch up the jail, and then we finally get to see, like somebody being killed in that mouth trap, and he puts her in it, and then she doesn't make it. So they made his way all the way to this really shitty ass movie to see what happens. And the execution, I don't know, it didn't pay off that well. I mean, they could, if they hadn't done that in the previous movie, it would have looked even more disgusting and more satisfying. But and then Hoffman gets himself captured by Dr. Gordon, and then we find out that he's been working with Jigsaw as well. And we see how all through all the times that he helped Jigsaw, and then it all makes sense. You know, like when he, like for example, when he would help, you know, do a little, you know, something that that probably only a doctor would know. Like it's like, okay, so all right, that makes sense. At that time, you know, like when these movies were coming out, I wasn't thinking that much into it. Like he's got to have a doctor in his disposal, or maybe he is a doctor. I didn't think of any of that. I just thought, oh, okay. And then when it all came back to me, when you see Dr. Gordon is actually doing this, and I'm like, oh, okay. And I liked how it put all those pieces of the puzzle together before it ended. And that's the best part of the movie. I mean, that's all I kept thinking about, like when this movie came out over the years. Now that I'm looking back on it, and I'm like, this is a piece of shit, but I at least enjoyed how this movie ended. So overall, it's still a piece of shit. And for the longest time, I thought Saw 5 was that, but this has to be, in my opinion, the worst in Saw 5, because the acting, the effects, you know, the blood and all that stuff is all just fucking phony. So back then I would have given it maybe 2.5 chairspins out of 5, but here right now it's gonna get probably 1.5 chairspin. So here we go. 1.5 chairspin. But shit. Now we're on to Jigsaw, and hopefully this isn't as bad as this fucking movie. I mean, they tried to bring Scream back, and you know, like with Scream 4, and we know how that turned out. So keeping my fingers crossed, you know, like on Jigsaw. I don't expect it to be fantastic, but I am more curious to see if the franchise deserves to be resurrected, brought back, or should it have been left buried. So we shall see. But if you guys enjoyed my review on this movie, make sure you thumb up the video. Make sure you click subscribe if you're new to the channel. Thank you for watching. And it's just funny looking back, like how the first movie kind of foreshadowed, you know, like Dr. Gordon's fate, you know, like to where he would end up now, you know, at this point. That is funny how it works out. But anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, y'all.